Alrighty folks, welcome to my free pick video here today for Friday, March 7th, 2025. Happy Friday to you. Weekend's finally here. Congratulations, you made it. Of course, if you're joining me for the first time here today, my name is Brock Page. I've been dishing out free sports picks on YouTube since 2016. And listen, I gotta tell you, not my best effort on my premium page yesterday on Thursday. Did not have a winning day, although we do continue to roll in our extra daily pick package. That membership improved to 80% in our last 10 plays. Had the Liberty Flames plus 1.5 in college basketball, and they put up 86 points in an outright win over Middle Tennessee. It's also going to put us at 13-4 in our last 17 plays in that same membership. Good for 76% during that span. The good news is I do have another extra daily pick going off here for Friday. That play is already posted and ready for access in the post section. It's just 9 cents a day to access my extra daily pick for the next 30 days. Of course, as an added bonus during that time frame, you'll also get access to my daily best play each and every day during that time frame. Absolutely free. It'll be included with your membership. Listen, I also have plenty of free content on my premium page as well, so you can go over there and enjoy the content over there without even having to pay anything. Not all the content, of course, but there is some free stuff you can access. I currently have over 2,140 members who are signed up and active on that page right now. And listen, I said it earlier in the week, it's tough to win games in this racket. Don't let anybody tell you it's not. It's tough to win games. We found out about that a little bit yesterday on Thursday after a fantastic week of winning plays. We won a lot of games this week. So listen, I do my best to handicap these games for you, and I'm trying real hard for you to get back on track here for Friday. Definitely want to get off to a nice start to the weekend. So a lot of good stuff happened this week on the premium page, but Thursday was not one of them. Got to do a better job. I feel horrible about it. So, I'm sorry. Got to do a better job. And working hard for you. And we're going to do our best to get back on track for Friday. But anyway, it's time for some free content. So let's go ahead and dive in. Gardner-Webb takes on High Point. That's going to be a 12 o'clock Eastern tip-off at the Freedom Hall Civic Center. Big South tournament, 1 versus 8. High Point's minus 12, totals 155. High Point's 26-5 on the year, 7-3 away from their home court. Gardner-Webb 11-19 themselves, just 3-13 away from home as well. Of course, more recently, the Runnin' Bulldogs took the loss in 7 out of their last 9. Covered only 3 times during that stretch. Gardner-Webb gives up 78 points a game for the year, 316th in field goals allowed. And High Point should ideally have a field day tomorrow. They're 8th in the country in offensive field goal percentage. They're a top 20 scoring team in the nation. Damarian Williams shoots 40% from 3-land for the Panthers, 14.5 points a game. And Keza Gifa averages over 14.5 points a night himself, 85% from the stripe. Of course, as a team, High Point hasn't lost a game in over a month and a half. When it comes to the total, the Panthers saw overs recently with UNC Asheville, Radford, and Presbyterian. Meanwhile, Gardner-Webb saw overs in 5 out of their last 9 themselves, throwing out that SC Upstate contest. I like High Point minus 12 over 155. All right, next game, not on our big screen, but it's going to be Stony Brook taking on Delaware. That is a 2 o'clock Eastern tip-off in the Care First Arena in D.C. It's 12 versus 13 in the Colonial Athletic Conference. Delaware's minus 6, totals 149.5. The Blue Hens are 12-19 on the year. Stony Brook just 8-23. The Seawolves have also dropped 13 of 16 away from their home court. Losers of 7 out of their last 10. And I'll tell you, Stony Brook's had all kinds of problems on defense. They're in the bottom 25 in defensive field goal percentage. And they're taking on a Delaware squad who averages nearly 77 points a game, top 20 in shooting from the foul line. The Blue Hens are making over 78% of their shots from the stripe. John Camden makes 40% of his long balls, 16 points a game for Delaware. And Kayvan Riley, he's averaging a dozen points a game himself, 85% from the foul line. Delaware games went 6-3 to the over in their last 9. Stony Brook saw overs in 5 out of their last 9 themselves. I like Delaware -6 over 149.5. Next contest, Presbyterian taking on Radford, 2:30 Eastern tip-off in Freedom Hall. 4 versus 5 in the Big South. Radford's -4.5, totals 133. Radford's 19-12 on the year, but just 7-9 away from their own court. And they're facing a Presbyterian team who's done a nice job shooting the basketball. They're averaging 75 points a game, 47% from the field. Carl Paris knocks down 40% of his deep balls, 92% from the foul line. And Kobe Stewart's averaging 15 points a game himself, handful of boards per game. Now, as a team, the Blue Hose got the W in 5 out of their last 7. They covered in all of those contests except for 2. Presbyterian games went 60% to the over in their last 10. Radford saw overs recently versus High Point, SC Upstate, and this very Presbyterian team. That contest saw 153 total points back on February 22nd. I like Presbyterian +4.5 over 133. All right, next contest, not on our big screen, but it's going to be NCAA taking on Hofstra, 4:30 Eastern tip-off in the Care First Arena. 11 versus 14 in the CAA. Hofstra's -7.5, totals 126. Pride got the W in 2 out of their last 3, allowed just 57 points a game during that short span. Meanwhile, NCAA on the other side, just 7-24 overall, 2-15 away from home. Now, the Aggies took the loss in 7 out of their last 10, having a tough time getting to the hoop. A&T is averaging only 69 points a game for the year, 30% shooting from three-land. And they're taking on a Hofstra team who's one of the tougher programs to score against in the country. Hofstra allows just 65 points a game, 38% from the field. They're actually 7th in the country in defensive field goal percentage. Now, Hofstra games went 6-3 to the under in their last 9. A&T 8-1 to the under in their last 9 themselves. I like Hofstra -7.5, under 126. Next game, Western Carolina taking on Mercer, 5 o'clock Eastern start in the Harrah's Cherokee Center in Asheville. This is the 8 versus 9 matchup in the SoCon. Mercer's -6.5, totals 153. Mercer covered in 3 out of their last 4. Western Carolina just 8-21 overall, 1-14 away from their home floor. Of course, more recently, the Catamounts dropped 8 out of their last 10, having all kinds of problems on offense. WCU makes just 39% of their attempts from the field, bottom 5 in the country in that category. And they're taking on a Mercer school who's limiting opposing shooters just 41% from the field. And once again, the Bears covered in 3 out of their last 4, allowed only 60 points a game on average in those covers. Now, total-wise, the under cashed in Mercer's last 5 straight, 6-1 to the under in their last 7. I like Mercer -6.5, under 153. All right, next contest, Charleston Southern taking on UNC Asheville, 6 o'clock Freedom Hall. 3 versus 7 matchup in the Big South. UNC Asheville is -5.5, totals 151 and a hook. The Bulldogs are 20-10 on the year. Charleston Southern just 10-21. Of course, more recently, the Buccaneers lost their last 4 straight. Over 78 points a game they allowed during that span. They're taking on an Asheville team who's had little problem getting on the scoreboard this year. The Bulldogs are a top 20 point producing team, 14th in field goals made. Jordan Marsh averages 19 points a game, 80% from the line. And Fletcher Abey makes 42% of his attempts from downtown. Now, Asheville saw overs recently versus Winthrop, Longwood, and SC Upstate. Meanwhile, Charleston Southern saw overs recently versus Presbyterian, Gardner-Webb, and Winthrop. I like UNC Asheville minus 5.5, over 151 and a hook. Next contest, Ball State, Miami, Ohio, 6 o'clock East. Miami's minus 9.5, totals 149 and a hook. The Red Hawks are 22-8 on the year, 14-1 at home. Ball State, 14-16 themselves, 4-8 on the road. The Falcons are currently on a 3-game skid, and they're allowing nearly 75 points a game on average this year. They're taking on a Miami squad who's averaging over 81 points a game on offense, top 5 in the country in shooting the 3-ball. Miami's making just about 40% of their 3-pointers as a team. As a matter of fact, 6 out of their top 7 scorers are shooting better than 40% from long range. Cam Kraft is 41% from 3-land. Brant Byers, 42% from outside the arc. Miami saw overs recently versus Buffalo, Kent State, and Toledo. Ball State saw overs in 5 out of their last 9, throwing out that Central Michigan contest. I like Miami, Ohio, minus 9.5, over 149. All right, next contest, moving into the 7 o'clock slate. It is not on our big screen, but it's going to be South Dakota taking on North Dakota State. That'll be a 7 o'clock Eastern start in the Denny Sanford Premier Center in Sioux Falls. North Dakota State's minus 3, totals 165. Bison games went 4-3 to the over in their last 7. Overs against Denver, Oral Roberts, and Nebraska Omaha. The Bison are draining more 3 balls a game than any other school except one. Meanwhile, South Dakota on the other side saw overs recently versus Omaha, South Dakota State, and Denver. And they're making more free throws a game than any other school in the nation. This should be a fun one to watch. If you got ESPN Plus, might want to tune into this one. I like the over 165. All right, next game, Buffalo-Akron, 7 o'clock East. Akron's laying 19 points, totals 161. Now, the Zips are 24-6 on the year, perfect 15-0 at home. Buffalo 9-21 themselves, 3-12 on the road. Of course, more recently, the Battling Bulls took the loss in 8 out of their last 10. Failed to cover in all of those games besides 3. Buffalo's giving up 81 points a game on average, bottom 10 in field goals allowed. They're taking on an Akron school who's ninth in points per game, 3rd in assists. Nate Johnson scores 13.5 points a game, handful of boards per contest. And Tavari Johnson averages 13 points per game himself, 90% from the foul line. And out of the Zips' last 10 outings, they got the W in all of those games except for one. The over cashed in 60% of those ball games. Buffalo saw overs recently versus Miami, Ohio, Toledo, and Western Michigan. I like Akron minus 19, over 161. Next game, Western Michigan taking on Bowling Green. That'll be a 7 o'clock Eastern start. Bowling Green's minus 3, totals 145. The Falcons saw overs recently versus Kent State, Ohio, and Central Michigan. Their opponents are making nearly 80% of their free throws against them. That's highest in college basketball. That's not a good thing. Western Michigan saw overs recently versus Kent State, Buffalo, and Akron. They're allowing 77 points per contest themselves. That is also not a good thing. I like the over 145. All right, next matchup. Dayton, Virginia Commonwealth, 7 o'clock Eastern tip. VCU's minus 8.5, totals 142 and a hook. The Rams are 25-5, 15-0 at home. Now, Dayton's 21-9 themselves, but they do have a losing record against the point spread. The Flyers are also playing just .500 basketball on the road. They're going to have their hands full on the offensive end of the floor because they're facing a VCU squad who contests everything. The Rams allow only 62 points a game, 6th in the country in field goals allowed. When it comes to guarding the deep ball, they're holding their competition to just 5 made three-pointers a game. Now, no real shock here. The Rams saw unders in 4 out of their last 5. Dayton saw unders recently with St. Louis, Davidson, and St. Bonaventure. I like Virginia Commonwealth minus 8.5, under 142 and a hook. All right, next game, Ohio, Toledo, 7 o'clock East. Ohio's -2, totals 160. The Bobcats are just 3-9 on the road. Toledo 8-4 at home. The Rockets are averaging 78 points a game on offense, doing a nice job getting to the cup. Sam Lewis is averaging over 15.5 points a game, 43% from long distance. And Sonny Wilson gets 15 points a game himself, 40% from downtown. They're facing an Ohio squad who's giving up 76 points per contest themselves, having some troubles guarding the three ball. They're in the bottom 15 in defensive three-point percentage. Ohio saw 5 out of their last 9 get over the line. Toledo saw overs in their last 3 straight. I like Toledo +2, over $1.60. Next matchup, some more action. Eastern Michigan taking on Kent State, 7 o'clock East. Kent State's -11, totals 145. The Golden Flashes are 20-10 on the year, but they have a losing record against the point spread. Meanwhile, Eastern Michigan's 16-14 themselves, winners of 6 out of their last 8. They covered the number in all of those contests except for 2. And they're taking on a Kent State squad who's struggled against the number recently themselves. They failed to cover in 7 out of their last 10. Failures to cover against the likes of Western Michigan, Akron, and Miami, Ohio. They've also been a little threat shooting the deep ball on offense. They're making just 30% of their attempts outside the perimeter. Now, Kent State saw unders recently versus Akron and this very Eastern Michigan team. That game saw just 119 total points. Meanwhile, EMU saw unders recently versus Bowling Green, Miami, Ohio, and Toledo. I like Eastern Michigan +11, under 145. Next contest, Northern Illinois taking on Central Michigan, 7 o'clock East. CMU's -14, totals 144. The Chippewas are 8-5 at home. NIU 0-15 on the road. The Huskies lost every game in the month of February. They have not won a ball game in over a month. When it comes to offensive production, NIU's in the bottom 20 in offensive field goal percentage, 334th in offensive rebounds. They're taking on a Central Michigan team who covered in 5 out of their last 8. Opponents are shooting just 69% from opponents are shooting just 69% from the stripe against them. The Chippewas saw unders in 3 out of their last 4. NIU games went 6-2 to the under in their last 8. I like Central Michigan -14, under 144. All right, next matchup, Citadel, VMI, 7:30 p.m. East. Virginia Military Institute is -6, totals 140. The Keydets are covering in 67% of their games this year. Citadel just 5-24 overall, 0-12 on the road. Citadel lost every game in the month of February. Haven't won a ball game in over a month. When it comes to offensive production, the Bulldogs are averaging only 66 points a game. They're the second worst free throw shooting school in the nation. They're actually making only 62% of their free throws, 29% of their 3 balls. And they're taking on a VMI squad who definitely shoots well from the stripe themselves. They're also averaging nearly double-digit 3 balls a game. Now, the Keydets saw unders in 5 out of their last 8. Citadel saw unders recently versus Furman, Mercer, and Samford. I like VMI -6, under 140. Next matchup, Purdue, Illinois, 8 o'clock East. Illinois' -3.5, totals 160. Illinois games went 6-3 to the over in their last 9, 11th in the country in scoring. Meanwhile, Purdue games went 7-2 to the over in their last 9 themselves, 5th in the country in shooting from the field. Should be a fun one in the Big Ten. I like the over 160. All right, next contest, Longwood, Winthrop, 8:30 Eastern start at Freedom Hall. This is a 2 versus 6 matchup in the Big South. Winthrop's -2.5, totals 160 and a hook. Winthrop contest went 5-3 to the over in their last 8. Overs against UNC Asheville, Presbyterian, and Radford. The Eagles actually get more. The Winthrop Eagles get to the line more times a game than any other program in the country. Meanwhile, Longwood on the other side, they saw overs in 5 out of their last 9 themselves. 7th in the country in free throws per game as well. This could potentially be a fun one to watch. I like the over 160 and a half. Next matchup, Pepperdine, Portland, 9 o'clock Eastern start in the Orleans Arena in Vegas. 8 versus 9 in the West Coast Conference. Portland's -2, totals 155. The Pilots are just 12-19 on the year, 3-9 away from home. And on the offensive end, Portland's definitely struggled with turnovers and rebounds. They're currently 308th in offensive boards per game. They're facing a Pepperdine school who's led by Stefan Todorovic. He's averaging 18 points a game, 84% from the foul line. And Mo Odom, he's averaging a dozen points a game, 81% from the stripe. And listen, even though the Waves haven't been overly prolific on offense this year, they do a nice job of distributing the basketball, swinging it around. They're averaging 16 assists per game as a team. Now, Pepperdine saw unders recently versus Portland, Gonzaga, and Loyola Marymount. Meanwhile, Portland saw unders recently against Pepperdine twice this year. I like the Waves of Pepperdine +2, under 155. Next contest, South Florida, Memphis, 9 o'clock East. Memphis is -13.5, totals 150 and a hook. Memphis is 25-5 on the year, 12-2 as the home team. South Florida just 13-17 themselves, 2-9 on the road. The Bulls dropped 6 out of their last 7. Little threat shooting it from downtown. USF's making just 30% of their attempts from beyond the arc. They're taking on a Memphis squad who's limiting opposing shooters to just 42% from the field. And out of the Tigers' last 10 outings, they got the W in all of those contests except for one. I like Memphis -13.5, under 150 and a hook. Okay, next matchup. North Dakota taking on South Dakota, not on our big screen, but that is a 9:30 Eastern tip in the Denny Sanford Center. 3 versus 6 in the Summit League. South Dakota State's -8.5, totals 156. The Jackrabbits are 20-11 on the year. North Dakota just 11-20 themselves. The Fighting Hawks also lost 12 of 14 away from their home court. Losers of 9 out of their last 10 meetings with the Jackrabbits. It's been all South Dakota State recently. And I'll tell you, when it comes to defensive play, North Dakota they haven't been getting enough stops this year. They're giving up 80 points a game, 349th in defensive field goal percentage. They're taking on a South Dakota State team who got the W in 7 out of their last 10. They're 10th in the country in offensive rebounds. Now, total-wise, South Dakota State saw unders in their last 4 straight. Both schools with unders in 7 out of their last 10, respectively. Plenty of unders to go around. Pretty high number on the total here. I like South Dakota State -8.5, under 156. All right, next game. Colorado State taking on Boise State, 10 o'clock Eastern tip. Boise's -5.5, totals 140 and a hook. The Broncos are 22-8 on the year. Colorado State's 21-9. The Rams also have a winning record against the point spread, 600 win percentage in their travels. Of course, more recently, the Rams are on a 6-game winning streak. Over 80 points a game they averaged during that span. And speaking of offensive production, the Rams are 17th in shooting from the foul line, 20th in assists per game. Nick Clifford scoring over 17.5 points per contest, double-digit rebounds a game. And Jalen Lake's averaging 11.5 points a game himself, 90% from the foul line. And as good as Boise's been this season, they have been little threat shooting it from three land. The Broncos are making just 31% of their attempts from outside the arc. Boise games went 8-2 to the under in their last 10. Colorado State saw unders recently versus San Jose State, Air Force, and UNLV. I like Colorado State plus 5.5, over 140 and a hook. All right, next and final college basketball breakdown. UNLV, New Mexico, 10 o'clock East. New Mexico is minus 11.5. Totals 146 and a hook. The Lobos are 24-6 on the year, but they do have a losing record against the point spread. Kind of concerning here because this is a very large number. Meanwhile, UNLV is 17-13 themselves, covered in 5 out of their last 7. As a matter of fact, during that stretch, the Rebels garnered outright wins against the likes of San Diego State and Nevada. When it comes to defensive play, well, the Rebels have limited their competition to just 59 points a game in their last 7 outings, really tightening things up here down the home stretch. They're taking on a New Mexico squad who's definitely struggled against the number over the past few weeks. They failed to cover in 5 out of their last 6. Failures to cover against the likes of Air Force, Utah State, and Wyoming. Now, total-wise, both programs saw unders in 6 out of their last 10, respectively. I like UNLV plus 11.5, under 146 and a hook. And with that, we're going to jump into some NBA action. Cavs, Hornets, 7 o'clock East. Cleveland, 16.5, totals 234 and a hook. The Cavs are 52-10 on the year, 23-6 on the road. They're also covering in over 66% of their games. Meanwhile, Charlotte's 33 games below 500, just 9-23 in the Spectrum Center. The Hornets are averaging only 105 points a game this year, dead last in shooting from the field. They're taking on a Cleveland squad who hasn't lost a game in a month. 8-2 against the point spread in their last 10. The Cavs are currently 4th in the NBA in defensive field goal percentage. Now, the Cavaliers saw unders recently with Miami, Orlando, and Brooklyn. Charlotte games went 60% to the under in their last 10. I like Cleveland minus 16.5, under 234 and a hook. Next contest, Jazz, Raptors, 7:30 p.m. East. Toronto's minus 5, totals 230. Now, Toronto games went 5-3 to the over in their last 8. They're 24th in defensive scoring. Meanwhile, Utah games went 8-2 to the over in their last 10 themselves. They're allowing nearly 120 points a game as well. I like the over 230. Next contest, Grizzlies, Mavericks, 7:30 p.m. East. Memphis is minus 10.5 away from home, totals 240. And even though the Mavericks are currently in shambles, it's been Memphis who's been terrible against the point spread recently themselves. You know, for a team laying double digits in this spot here on the road, the Grizzlies failed to cover in their last 9 straight. Looks like this is more of a pure fade of the Grizzlies versus a tale of the Mavs here. The Grizzlies are currently 25th in points allowed. Tends to get into all kinds of foul trouble as well. The Grizzlies are sending more shooters to the stripe than any other team besides one. And even though, like I said, the Mavericks are a bit of a catastrophe on the other side of things, they're still allowing only a dozen three-pointers a game on defense. Top 10 in defensive field goal percentage. Now, Maverick games went 60% to the under in their last 10. Memphis saw unders recently versus Oklahoma City, New York Knicks, and Orlando. Once again, pure fade of Memphis. They're just not good enough against the number right now to be laying double digits on the road. Give me Dallas plus 10.5, under 240. Next contest, Timberwolves Heat, 8 o'clock East. Minnesota's 4.5, totals 216. The T-Wolves saw unders recently versus Phoenix, LA Lakers, and Oklahoma City. Currently 5th in the league in points allowed. Meanwhile, Miami saw unders recently with Cleveland, Washington, and Oklahoma City themselves. First in the league in fewest free throws allowed on D. I like the under 216. Next game, Blazers, Thunder, 8 o'clock East. OKC's -2.5, totals 226 and a hook. And listen, before you get too excited about this number, just keep in mind it looks like OKC's going to have a handful of guys who are potentially sitting out in this one, going to give a couple guys some rest, couple guys banged up. So, like I said, if this line looks fishy, it is. OKC got a ton of guys on the injury report at the moment. Now, OKC also failed to cover in 6 out of their last 10 when they were mostly healthy. And they're facing a Portland squad who's actually sent some bettors to the cage here recently. They covered the number in 5 out of their last 7. They've been tough against the 3-ball in defense. The Blazers, they're allowing only a dozen 3-balls a game. When it comes to the total, they saw unders recently versus the Sixers, Jazz, and Lakers. Oklahoma City, on the other side, saw unders recently versus Memphis, Minnesota, and Miami. Give me the Blazers +2.5, under 226 and a hook. All right, next game, Spurs, Kings, 10 o'clock East. Sacramento's -5, totals 236. The Kings saw overs recently versus the Warriors and Pelicans, having troubles guarding the long ball. They actually have the second highest defensive 3-point percentage in the entire NBA. And they're facing a San Antonio team who saw overs in their last 3 straight. Bottom 10 in points allowed. Not really expecting a defensive stronghold in this one. I like the over 236. Next matchup, Suns, Nuggets, 10 o'clock East. Denver, 7.5, totals 236. The Nuggets are 40-22 on the year, 21-9 in the Ball Arena. Phoenix, 4 games under 500 themselves, 11-20 on the road. Of course, more recently, the Suns dropped 7 out of their last 10. Bottom 10 in points allowed. And speaking of defensive play, Phoenix is currently second to last in the league in defensive turnovers. They're taking on a Denver squad who got the W in 7 out of their last 10. They're first in the league in field goals per game. Nikola Jokic is scoring over 28.5 points a night, dozen rebounds, 10 assists. The Joker is also shooting 43% from outside the perimeter. Of course, Murray and Porter are also drilling 40% of their deep balls. The Nuggets saw overs recently versus Detroit, Charlotte, and Portland. Phoenix games went 6-3 to the over in their last 9. I like the Nuggets -7.5, over 236. And with that, folks, we're going to jump into our next and final breakdown for the video. Knicks, Clippers, 10:30 p.m. East. The Clippers are -3.5, totals 223. Clipper games went 5-4 to the over in their last 9. They're 9th in shooting from the stripe. Meanwhile, the Knicks saw overs in 5 out of their last 9 themselves, throwing out that Golden State matchup. The Knicks are currently in the top 5 in the league in field goals per game. Give me the over 223. And with that, folks, we are going to jump into our quick pick recap here in just a moment. Of course, we're going to be starting in college basketball. Give me High Point -12, over 155. Delaware -6, over 149.5. We are currently 8-2 in our last 10 extra daily picks on my premium page. 13-4 in our last 17 in that same package. Presbyterian +4.5, over 133. Hofstra -7.5, under 126. Mercer -6.5, under 153. UNC Asheville -5.5, over 151 and a hook. Miami, Ohio -9.5, over 149. I like the over 165 in that South Dakota, North Dakota State matchup. Give me Akron -19, over 161. I like the over 145 in that Western Michigan Bowling Green game. Virginia Commonwealth -9.5, under 142 and a hook. Toledo +2, over 160. Eastern Michigan +11, under 145. Central Michigan -14, under 144. VMI -6, under 140. I like the over 160 in that Purdue-Illinois matchup. Over 160.5 in that Longwood-Winthrop matchup. Pepperdine +2, under 155. Memphis -13.5, under 150 and a hook. South Dakota State -8.5, under 156. Colorado State +5.5, over 140 and a hook. UNLV +11.5, under 146.5. NBA Cleveland -16.5, under 234 and a hook. I like the over 230 in that Utah-Toronto matchup. Dallas +10.5, under 240. Under 216 in that Timberwolves Heat game. Portland +2.5, under 226 and a hook. Over 236 in that San Antonio-Sacramento matchup. Denver Nuggets -7.5, over 236. And give me the over 223 in that Knicks-Clippers game. And with that, folks, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on my premium page. And if you do end up getting a membership here today on my premium site, just a friendly reminder, you're going to get access to that membership every single day for the next 30 days. And as an added bonus, you're also going to get access to all of my cheaper memberships during that time frame, absolutely free. They're going to be included with your membership. That's why I always tell folks, that Gold Club package, it's a full access, all-inclusive membership. It gives you access to every single premium selection of mine, every single package, every single day for the next 30 days. And occasionally we do a Gold Club video where we break down every single premium selection in video format. Don't do that every day, but we do it most days. I try to do it as much as I can. Should be able to do it this morning for you as well. So be on the lookout for that. But most importantly, folks, got to thank you for joining me right here on the free video. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. Sorry to sound discouraged at the beginning of the video. It's because I am. It was not a great day on the premium site yesterday. I feel terrible about it, but I'm looking forward to a great day here on Friday. So let's get back on the saddle. Let's get back to the window and cash some tickets. So anyway, happy Friday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my premium page.